Hey guys, it's Matt. This is like the video before the video. This is a session where I'm going to try to organize my thoughts. I've been writing up something for days, trying to expand my understanding of how reality works, the entire reality works, take it to the next step, move it forward a degree, kind of combine all of the things we've talked about in the past, like, quote, the download, for example, tie everything together. I am writing it out. I would have liked to have done it tomorrow on Free Voice, but it might be Monday. It's just too big, too important. And also, I think this is a good opportunity, not just to organize my thoughts, but to get some of your feedback, comments, incorporate some of your good ideas into my final understanding. Or, obviously I don't have all the answers on how the reality works. Just trying to move, and I believe I am successfully moving my understanding forward a bit. So to start, also, let me just say this, I'm not in a great mood. Whenever like a family member calls me, I don't get too many normie calls at all. I don't get too many calls by anybody. I don't do much of anything. But so basically, my friends don't call me anymore. My family calls me from time to time. I get very depressed when they must think I'm completely ready to jump out a window, because I'll be in a decent mood. They'll call me up, and I'll sound very, very depressed and distraught because it's just so frustrating. I feel so bound, I'm sure as you do. I can't say anything to them. Like, they're tired of me talking about the same old conspiracy stuff. I know if I say one thing, and it's just the same old stuff. Like, did your mom get the shot? It's all it is about. It's all it's about. That's all they can talk about. The Masters is coming up. It's so frustrating. And I immediately come across to them like I'm completely depressed, even though, say, an hour before I was fine. So there must be Matt's ready to jump or something, because I find it incredibly depressing talking to them, because nothing we see about what is going on with this issue or anything, nothing we see, we can express to those closest to us. It's incredibly frustrating and mentally difficult to deal with. So I'll probably become in a better mood as I go through this, but there won't be too many jokes in this one. Maybe later. Sometimes I'm making a video, feel I'm talking to all you guys, I do get in a better mood. But this is more, let me throw these ideas out and I'll organize them in the paper that's coming tomorrow or Monday, hopefully on Free Voice. It's so important and kind of big. It might be Tuesday. I can't rush this out, and I will look at your comments as well on each of, to see if you think I'm completely off in any of these areas I'm going to present now. And again, I apologize if this is not very polished. I'm not going to re-record segments I don't like. Better to probably get this out and some interesting things to mull over, and you guys can help me form the final opinion than to just do this in a notebook or on my PC. So I apologize if this isn't, sounding like a normal video from what I typically put out or podcast. So whenever addressing something this big, I always back up as far as I can, back up to the absolute basics. So I started in my notes here with, reiterating the premise. The premise, the entire reality, the life journey through the reality, and what you would call a test or the steps. You've heard me say this, so I'll be very, very quick about it. Step one, whether you call this the life journey, life test, spiritual life journey, whatever it is, step one is seeing that this entire world is a massive fraud and deception. Okay, that's the first 8 years of being a truther, or 10 years of being a truther. I actually retitled the book to the word, now I see the world's a massive fraud, now what do I do? I'm evolving the book. Originally written for a normie that I thought, when I first started writing about 4 years ago, I thought the book could be so comprehensive that it would wake everybody up. And now we know that that can't happen. People are on the download. There are other reasons why they simply can't wake up. So over years, I've evolved the book into helping, say, the 10th grade truther or the 11th grade truther, or somebody that's, not a 10th level Jedi yet, but just is starting to really get it. So it's like, okay, now I see the world's a fraud. Now what do I do? So that's step one. Step two is the realization that no real world could pull all this off. Okay. No real world could do all this. The endless conspiracy, the thousands of different topics, the hundreds of different research segments inside the truth community. No real world could pull this off. First grade, secret societies have been the cabal, and I don't, I'm beyond that. Can't be pulled off. It's inhuman. It's supernatural. Step 3 is using a realization about step 2 to understand what we really are, this is the greatest part of what we do. The greatest part of what we do is the moment you realize that, oh my gosh, I must be very special if they're doing all of this stuff and they're getting in my business in all these different areas because of me, because they want something from me. I must be awfully powerful and awfully special. This is the culmination of why we do what we do. And ultimately, if anybody's saying, well, isn't that the end in itself? It really is. It really is. But you'll see where this is going. I mean, we can expand our understanding and do it in ways that ultimately help steps 3. But if you ultimately get to a certain level of step 3, I think there's not too much more one can accomplish in life. That's all that's important, is understanding your true spiritual nature. And backing up to the basics, a full realization and acceptance of the world being not real, again, who could pull all this off, and a quick jump to step 3, understanding who you really are. It dispels all fear. It dispels all worry. And it dispels negative emotion, which allows one to detach, and when appropriate, kind of walk out of here, detach from the reality itself, detach from people, the evil one is always ego. Ego is necessary in this place, in this avatar. Ego is necessary. You have to keep it in check. But, this quick jump to step 3, when you're really there, it dispels all fear, worry, and negative emotion. Okay, now, most truthers or people in our boat, yes, we're getting a sense as to who we really are. But this is where the work needs to be done. Almost everybody that comes to my channel or channels like this, we still have tons of fear. Of course we do. And that's what has to be exercised. When I get on these truth channels that always push the fear. And because of what I do, I jump around to a lot of different channels and people send me a lot of different things. And, I don't like to go to a truth channel that's talking about the meat packing plants are closing and we're not going to be able to get beef, and the fear that comes up. And to me, I don't buy that when they push fear like that. It almost never turns out to be anything of any significance. All that stuff about meat packing plants closing in March and April, we're not going to be able to we're all going to starve. There were some things. Good friend of the channel went to a Wendy's once, and they didn't have beef. You had to get a chicken sandwich. And then 2 or 3 days later, 4 days later, they had beef. It was nothing. So all that fear, but it does. But a little bit, even with me, a little bit of fear creeps in. That's just natural. It's who we are. But then that tells us, okay, we still have more work to do with step 3. Yeah, on paper, because of how they get in our business and how they want to influence us and how they always want to harvest our emotions and our energy, it tells me how powerful I really am. But I'm not 100% there yet, or I wouldn't have the fear. Okay, you see, if you have any fear, that's where we need to do the work. We're not, even though on paper we accept it, we say, yeah, I can see that's who I really am. But when fear pops up, you're not truly convinced of who you really are. That's where you need to do the work. Okay, and organizing my notes here for the next video coming in a few days. Again, this is going so slow, I can't imagine I'm going to have this thing done for tomorrow, Sunday, but it will be on Free Voice. The reality characteristics. Let's just go over the reality characteristics in no order of importance, just as I did this in my notes. Like, a police report on a culprit after a crime. Police might be interviewing somebody. Tell me about what you saw. Tell me about him. A medium height, medium build, walked with a limp. Did you see anything else? He had a dog named Precious. He drove in a van and asked a young girl to help him carry a chair into a van. Tell me about. So we should do this. We need to do this with the reality itself. And some of this, if anybody's new here, will sound a little bit crazy. All right. If you're new here, this is way out stuff. Okay, but. I've been doing this a long time. The longer you do this, the less crazy this stuff seems. And when you get to a reality or observe things like Zara's trying to cover up food over there making a bunch of noise, just scratching it. You know how they scratch, try to cover the food. Sorry about that. What I was going to say is when you arrive at a reality where there is a part of Germany that has a law or some kind of statute in the books about ice cream licks, you're only allowed so many ice cream licks on premises in the ice cream parlor. And then I don't know if it's 3 licks or 4 licks. And then you have to take your licks 50 feet outside the parlor. And there's actually some sort of ordinance on that. When you arrive into that reality, I would say nothing I'm about to present can appear too crazy. It's going to be less crazy than what actually the reality is trying to present as normal. Again, these notes are all over the place, no particular order. Reality characteristic 1 is, we'll just get one of the big ones out of the way, the download. Absolutely believe in it more now than when I floated it with the Andy doll. And what that means, if anybody's new, is reality moves into a new place. Reality is very, very fluid. Things aren't as real as they appear. Reality moves, let's say, flows down a river, but we stay in the same place. This group, for the most part, we stay rooted. We don't move down with it. So the world floats down the insane river towards the insane, and we stay on the bank. And it appears more and more insane as the raft gets farther and farther away. As it gets really far away, there's laws in Germany about how many licks of the ice cream cone. And now with the racial issues, it wasn't. Now that's, all the racial hate now is extended to other groups. And it's out of control. It's so fabricated. It's so engineered. All of us can see right through it. But we stand on the bank. And then, again, a family member called me today. And I just want to start into the new racial thing of the month. What have they cooked up now? And I just couldn't, obviously they don't want to hear me get into that. They don't want to hear me say that. I can't talk about anything I want to talk about. So we're standing on the bank, and the reality floats down the river with everybody on it. And it appears more and more insane. But those who are on the raft looking back at us standing on the bank, we look more and more insane. So at this point, I don't really distinguish. From a Mandela effect perspective, for example, I don't distinguish between the dash missing and a Kit Kat bar, and one of these classic little Mandela effects. They're just cutesy little things, movie lines. I don't really distinguish between that and putting the entire world into a mask in 6 weeks. I think they're both absolutely related. And it absolutely relates to the word new normal. Okay, in both cases, these are reality shifts, accepted by 99% and whatever of the almost 100% of the population, accepted as the new normal. So to summarize reality characteristic 1, again, you might remember the Andy doll presentations. Reality moves into a certain place, and it's done I'm talking about a supernatural way, or a dark occult way, or a spell, or something that just can't be explained with people making phone calls and people putting together white papers. Okay, I'm beyond that. Reality moves into a certain place. Whatever their tools or tricks or reality buttons and levers are, whatever. Maybe we'll never figure that out. But it's like a Mandela effect. Okay, sorry if your Mandela effect triggered or whatever. I won't keep talking about that. But it's like a download. So from a Mandela affected perspective, a reality in a movie line is this, and it's always been that way. And everybody just syncs up and conforms to the new reality. But it's not the new reality. It's what always has been and what history shows always has been. So this is happening with the sea thing. It's happening in a lot of different areas. How people accept all this stuff the news cooks up about race. They just go along with it, and they don't question it. It is part of their reality and is completely normal to them. When the reality resets or drops down, it's not going into a higher level of ascension. It's going down towards the abyss, keeping people farther and farther away from their spiritual selves. When it moves down, everybody moves down with it. We don't. We stay at a different place. That's why the separation between us and them, is that what us and them is about, the Pink Floyd? It's so huge, the divide now, that they truly believe, the people around you, that you are crazy. And from their perspective, as I've said many times, from their perspective, living in this reality, they would be right. So it's not that they refuse to see it. And these old first grade things and excuses we used to say, oh, everybody really knows the truth, but they just want to protect their worldview and cognitive dissonance. And that's, to me, it's all first grade stuff. I've talked about it for years. I was there. But you just can't explain it away with explanations that fit it inside the bookend. There's something supernatural going on. It's not like they can see the truth and they don't want to see it. They can't see it. They can't see it. And we're actually wrong in our interpretation because we're kind of remembering a world that should be or that once was that is no longer here. So again, by any metric that conforms to this reality, they are right, okay. But again, who wants to be right on the insane asylum ship or the ship of fools? So I'm fine with our position, but it's not that simple that they just want to protect their worldview. No, not that simple. They are absolutely on board with where this reality is. We aren't. That's fine. I don't want to be on board with it. Do you? You know, every day I remember when I wake up, I say, I don't comply and I don't want to conform to this place. I never want to conform to this place because it takes us farther away from our spiritual selves. It's what the whole reality is designed to do. Okay, that's reality characteristic 1. I don't know how I'm going to bring all these together in a white paper that I'm going to read, or I don't know what to call it, an insane paper. Reality characteristic 2. So we as a community have we've documented by now thousands of examples, thousands of a higher truth or a metaphysical higher truth or a reveal of some kind being presented in a movie or in art or in some form of popular media. Of course, we've gone here a million times, but the point is we've now beyond thousands or done this so many times for so many years. Okay. Now, we see higher truths flowing out of even what seemed like idiotic pop songs now. So it's there and we know it's real, this higher truth. This is a positive message through art and media or even TV and movies, a positive message or something that like a look deep within yourself. Okay, that is like the Silence of the Lambs. Clarice, look deep within yourself. Woe by yourself. This is very positive. The end of Jumanji, it's very positive, where he's tired of running and of being in fear. Robin Williams to the hunter, he turns around and he's like, you know, aren't you going to run? And I forget how it went down, but Robin was like, no, I'm not running anymore. I'm not being afraid anymore. This theme repeats in a lot of things. Freddy Krueger 1, or is it called Friday the 13th? Eventually the girl just turns around. She's like, you know what? F this. I'm sick of being afraid. I'm going to take it on head on. The end of Jumanji. This theme is very, very positive. This is almost like the winning move to reality itself, in my opinion. Getting yourself to a certain point where you simply turn around and face it with no fear. And I know, there's so many truth people listening to this, like, I'm there, Matt. Oh, are you really? You really? You can watch any sort of truth video. The meat packing plant's closing. You can watch it all. Nothing bothers you. Hey, if that's great, you probably shouldn't be here because I'm not even there yet. I'm not there yet. Okay? I've shed 85% of the fear I had doing this truth thing 3 or 4 years ago. And that's what Alex Jones is all about. It's about truth, and then attached to fear, or Glenn Beck, or all this stuff. That's what it's there for. That's why it delivers as many heapings of truth as possible, as long as it delivers these in equal proportion of fear. So I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm not scared of anything. Well, you know, that I would say you're probably fooling yourself. And there's a few people, but they shouldn't be here because we're not quite there yet. Positive messages, you know, we have thousands of if we had to document them, or if anybody started documenting them. Even the end of Revolver, you know, Ray Liotta, just standing there, Jason Stamos, or John Stamos before Rebecca Romaine Stamos before she was Stamos, Jason Statham. And Ray Liotta's like, fear me. He's like begging him to fear me. He's like breaking down, losing it. Well, in my opinion, that's an aspect of Jason Statham's himself. It's not like a separate character. I think it's supposed to be an aspect of him. But forget that. That's neither here nor there. He's like, fear me. It's like, no, I don't fear you anymore. I've overcome it. This is one of the biggest life tests. What life is all about. And we're getting close, guys. We're way farther down where we need to be here than like normies or people around us that just live in fear, and but we still have some work to do, is what I'm saying. The point of this section is, again, these positive messages or metaphysical truth. Clarice, look deep within yourself. Whether the producer or the director was aware of it or not, we know 100% they flow through art and they flow through songs and music. Now, related to this is the predictive nature of media and art and TVs and movies, etc. The predictive nature that we would say predictive programming for future sinister events. They're related. That's the key here. These are related, in my opinion. So I don't buy that media or art or a movie carries like almost a supernatural message or a positive message of metaphysical truth in one example, and that's coming somehow supernaturally or channeling through whoever's making the art. In one example, this is happening, but then in the other examples where it's predictive programming or predictive nature of sinister events, then, oh no, in that case, it's just explained away by people making phone calls and just laughing, mocking. It's just mocking by the cabal. So see, I see them as related. It's not channeled and positive messages coming from your higher self or an aspect of you or your God or your creator on one side. And then when it's predictive programming, and this Peter Stuyvesant commercial, has 5 examples or predictive programmings of the 7-Eleven job application and 2 general predictives of the New World Order in a cigarette commercial that was put out for movie audiences in the late 70s. Now, in that case, that's the cabal just planning it in there. No, they're completely related. If the positive message can flow through or can be channeled, like look deep within yourself, then the sinister event will flow probably in the exact same way. That's almost pretty easy to see at this point to me. And I'll say it again. I think it's a first grade understanding when somebody would generally agree with me, for example, and say, yeah, there are beneficial truths that actually help, if you can read between the lines, help you navigate your spiritual self, that can flow through art or media or music or TVs or look deep within yourself. I know I keep saying that. Again, these are my rough notes. I could go back and find 100 examples. I just am not prepared to do that. I think everybody would agree that these messages are there. They're not just all negative predictive programmings of horrible upcoming, cabal events. So I'm going to say again, first grade is why would this be happening? And all we could come up with is, well, they have to show us. I mean, okay, there's probably some truth to that, but just pushing it off to they have to show us or karma. It just reeks of first grade understanding. But we don't have to understand. If there's a positive message that comes out of a movie, I'll say it again. I don't have all my notes in front of me. I don't have the book in front of me. If you believe that Clarice, look deep within yourself is a positive, read between the line truth drops, which I always have. I've talked about that one for years. Then why that has to be in there and how it gets in there, it doesn't matter. We'll never probably figure it out as long as we see the message and apply it to quickly get ourselves to step 3 in the 3 steps. But, the reality itself wants us constantly going back. Well, why is it in there? They have to show us. All that shit is just distraction. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's no different than any other distraction. This reality loves distraction. Any distraction to keep you away from understanding of who you really are is what this reality is all about. So as I've said many times, I don't believe the Hillary Clinton creeps for all this predictive stuff and whatever it is in movies, music, art, entertainment. I don't believe they arrange it all. Making phone calls and faxes, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I think the good messages and the predictive nature of sinister events all are coming basically out of the same type of mechanism, whatever that mechanism is here. I believe I'm starting to, at first we give the creeps so much respect. Oh, we shouldn't use these respect terms like controllers and this and that. And we try to not use the terms, but during that phase of our pursuit of truth, we do believe that this cabal or Illuminati or whatever, we give them way too much credit. I'm very convinced at this point, if you back up far enough out of the reality, look down farther and farther away at the snow globe, wherever we are, these you call controllers, or they're as clueless in many respects as anybody. I mean, they're used by the greater reality to accomplish something in the same way we've been used or other groups have been used. Now, when we're here and, they land in a private jet and all this and they control all of media and, oh, it's so powerful. And I think they believe they might, as if Tony says it's a different type of incarnation where they carry information on past lives or bloodlines or family. They see how, in this respect, I'm superior to these great unwashed and these truthers, and but that is nothing. That just if your ability to navigate this place and you can then gain riches and power, that is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And I don't think they can even back up far enough to see how even they're being used. Whatever you call the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you call these controllers, they're being used by the reality. There's a lot of evidence for this, and there's no reason to, unless you just covet their wealth and their lifestyle. There's no, come on, these people, they're just creeps. You want to talk about big fish in a small pond? Regarding or comparing the pond to all that ever was and all that ever will be, it's like it's not a pond. It's that muddy horse print puddle that Matt Damon said he would lap the water out of in what's that movie called? True Grit. It's like the Jeff Bridges plays the same character in like 3 different movies. He's a very limited actor in that regard. Even parts of that character even come out in The Givers. So it's the same guy. You Texas brush pauper. So whether we see the good messages or the bad messages, whatever the mechanism is, it is fascinating to try to get to the bottom of how it actually goes down. One of my main messages, we should just leave that pursuit behind. But, in terms of truly getting and fully comfortable with step 3, once you fully get comfortable with step 3 and you basically all fear is gone, then you could go back and have fun and say, yeah, how did the video game Deus Ex, not Deus Ex Machina, but just Deus Ex of 2000, the year 2000, how a video game about the Illuminati, how did they get it done where when they panned the New York City skyline 8 or 10 months before the event, there was no WTC, a video game released well in advance of when the 7-Eleven job application was taken. How did that get done? If all reality, this is where I've said many times, reality kind of breaks down if you just play this out. Like, well, the guys that code, they're just 20-somethings in their T-shirts, just sitting around and rollerblading around the Silicon Valley offices that whoever produced the game Deus Ex, and then the Men in Black must have showed up, like Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones types with their pens, and they came in and they said, "We need to speak to whoever's doing this game development." And these 3 people are doing the pixel rendering of New York City skyline. Son, you need to remove the WTC. Well, why? How does that even get done? I don't know if we'll ever know, but there's an interesting story that I'm going to present now. I don't know if I'll talk about it again in the future. I'll probably keep this short. I might even present part of his email, but a good friend of mine at this point in the channels is Izzo. We'll just call him Izzo. He has a ton of information about Warhammer 40K. All right. Warhammer 40K is, started as, and it's still played as a board game, kind of like you strategically move your pieces and positions around and roll dice, role-playing game. And then it was so popular, Warhammer in general evolved into video games. But the true roots of it is a role-playing game, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but strategic. Move your forces here, move your forces there, whatever. And the whole point, I'm going to do a 25-minute story here into just 2 minutes, and I will this time try to keep to the 2 minutes, is he's saying if you look into the backstory of Warhammer 40,000, there's just endless backstory of narratives as to what these factions are. What are these factions all about? This faction wears the double-headed eagle. This faction wears the fleur-de-lis. That all this backstory of these different factions to try to breathe life into this Warhammer 40K environment when you're playing, moving your little plastic figurines around. It's like endless art. It's amazing what exists. And he's saying, Izzo's saying, I was right there, like when this game was being developed, like one of the main guys that was helping to develop this game. And it might have been like, I don't know, like late 80s or something, or early 90s. It's just a long, long time ago. And I think he said his name was Steve. And he's like, all the truth or whatever, the predictive things that flow out of Warhammer 40,000, in their symbolism and all that. He's like, Matt, I was there with this guy. He was one of the guys that helped create the game, although he's not an owner. He's like, this was just a regular guy. He wasn't going off to some secret society meetings. He wasn't from some bloodlines. I spent all this time with this guy. Became a good friend, blah, blah, blah. Now, I think he said in one email, he said, is it possible this guy was some bloodline? He would never, somebody yelling at the video right now, well, Matt, people like that would never let anybody normal know about their true connections. It's possible. But Izzo's basically saying this was just a regular guy, and the people that developed this were just regular gaming, Dungeons and Dragons nerds. And how all this symbolism got in there, did it flow out? Was it channeled? I don't know, but it does lend, what Izzo presented lends a lot of, and I'll read his email sometime, presents a lot of credibility that somehow this is tremendous art to create an incredible, intricate game with backstory like Warhammer 40,000. It's almost like a carrier wave. The truth of reality will ride a carrier wave through the creative process itself, the way the movie Contact, there's just numbers coming in, primes. It's counting in primes. And then the guy that had a different perception, right? The blind guy, he had a different perception. He's like, there's more here. Plug it in, show the alternative band or whatever. Oh, there's a carrier wave here. There's another message inside the message. No doubt about it. This is how reality works, in my opinion. Vanessa VA playing George Michael father figure in certain songs, and I don't, some of the songs she plays, I listen, I go, that doesn't speak to me at all. But some of the songs, it's like there's a carrier wave where it just sounds like it's about a relationship, but the carrier wave that's embedded somehow, and it's telling you about your spiritual self or your relationship to whatever your religion might be, your God, creator, source, higher self. This carrier wave exists, in my opinion, and there's just as I've thought this through for countless hours with inner knowing and inner perception of how this might be, it's just not people in back rooms, making sure the messages. They don't know. The artist has no idea. If George Michael wrote that song, and he is known to do a lot more than being just a pretty face, he could play multiple instruments, a very, very talented individual. He wrote Father Figure, say he did all that. I think the spiritual message could be there. If you wanted, again, you might not like that example, but there's other examples. He's not even aware. He channeled it somehow. And I think Izzo would say this relates to how world of Warhammer, not Warcraft, Warhammer 40,000 or 40K. As time goes on, these are all first grade explanations, in my opinion, about secret cabals and back rooms and this and that. This is a. I don't even think I'll get into this in my next video. Okay, the reality wants us believing it's just secret cabals in the back room, okay? It wants us on that wall. It needs us on that wall. It's Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men, but it's like the reality itself. It wants us and needs us with these endless bullcrap rabbit hole chases all the time. And it artificially feeds us to them. That's one of the reality characteristics coming up. Artificially feeds us what we expect to see. And no real world could do this. I'm getting kind of sick of it. All right, this is the big one. The event horizon reality. It'll be less than 1 minute. In the movie Event Horizon, the spaceship with Lawrence Fishburne went through hell itself, came back, and had all these demonic traits to it. It showed each crew member its worst fear. It taps into your fears, and he says it shows you. This is an Event Horizon reality, but extending to every facet of human beings, and especially plain as day to me now inside the truth community. So this is what I'm going to write about in the video coming up. Whatever it might be, inside the truth community, we have all these different factions, just like Warhammer 40,000, segments, factions. We have the mud flood researchers, and I came out of the vein that does the fake bang events. And then we have the JFK researchers and the New World Order and the Illuminati research experts and the alien people and the crop circles and the Tartaria and the architect people that just spend time on the impossible architecture and all these different factions. Okay. I'm at the point, and I don't see me moving off this. Okay. I'm at the point that whatever your part of your truth research is, whatever your thing is, your specific thing, I am convinced the reality will show you, will find a way to show you exactly what you want to see. Anybody going, well, how would that work? How would that be pulled off? What? I don't know, but I've seen enough. I've seen enough. Let's just start with the basics. Are mud flood researchers, are they're working for the cabal and they're here just to distract us? No, I think these are legitimate people trying to do the best they can. But what a coincidence, okay? It's time for us to notice the nature of the reality itself and stop being fooled by it. What a coincidence. As soon as a group of researchers, basically like 5 main channels about 3 or 4 years ago started to investigate all this mud flood stuff, the evidence started to just pour in. All these old photographs and all this stuff started to pour in. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. I don't think it is a coincidence. I think the reality does it. It sees to it. Anybody saying, well, Matt, these are old photographs that show, these buildings where there were 5 floors under the mud and they're being dug out. And what are you saying? Everything, the photos were doctored. And I'm saying it's not a traditional, I'm saying you can't find the answer inside your bookends. Well, if this photo is not real, then somebody doctored an old photo. I don't know how it happened. I don't think we'll ever understand. And it's not the cabal and the Hillary Clinton types with the reality buttons and levers. The reality itself gave or fed the mud flood researchers everything they needed to stay engrossed in it. Okay? I'm not just picking on mud flood researchers. This is all of us. It's the same way. The aliens, okay, this is a certain segment of our truth community. We don't really bother with aliens, this and that, and crop circles, which is just, crop circles is, if you look into it, it is incredible. I mean, these designs are so intricate, so impossible. It is mind-boggling that we don't talk about it a little more. But I'm watching Aaron, his name is Aaron Abke. I've mentioned him a few times over the last few weeks. More of like that Buddha at the gas pump type guy. They're all spiritual ascension, touchy-feely, but they never will deal with the dark side of reality that we deal with. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not in his reality, or I don't really know how to put it. But he has a presentation a few months back about aliens are here. And you've heard this before in the truth community, from the Palladians or whatever, like human race in its infancy and the planet Earth is being overseen by benign or benevolent aliens trying to help us to get to the next level or get to 4D. You've heard these stories. And to us in this hardcore truth community where we come out of the 7-Eleven, we come out of the fake events, mostly we roll our eyes at that, of course. We're like, come on, man. We come out of the NASA stuff where we see nobody goes anywhere in their Bradford White water heater. So it's like, well, wait a second. This guy's no dummy, okay? This Aaron Abke, he is as smart as they come, all right? So I'm saying, well, of course, for a traditional truther coming out of where we come out of, we're like, he's fooled. There's no aliens overseeing humanity's progression, and I don't think there is either. I don't think anybody gets in a little spaceship and goes anywhere. But I just don't see it. But it's like, well, wait a second. Is he fooled and we're the only ones that are right? Or all of us are fooled? Because the reality is the event horizon reality. It will show each researcher exactly what it wants to find, exactly what it expects to find. Almost like that's what maybe all this, the mirror symbolism that one particular channel, I can't. It's a very difficult name to remember for me, but he knows who he is. Always talking about the mirror symbolism. It's like what you want to, or what you expect to find, is what will be reflected back at you. So I'm thinking, this guy's not dumb. Is he fooled, or is this one of the natures of reality itself, that it will just reflect and give you exactly what you want to find or expect to find? And to me, this is understanding how the whole reality works. So unfortunately, whatever you specifically investigate, and I don't want to make any enemies with any truthers or anything like that, but I believe this is how it works. So I'm sorry. I mean, if you're, let's just say a JFK investigator, but if you investigate anything specifically, I believe the reality itself will somehow produce evidence to keep you going. I don't know how it's done. It's not just people, obviously, and regular men and women. It's a supernatural aspect to it, and it applies to everything across the board. So the impossible architecture is fascinating to me. But these buildings have existed, so I couldn't have walked by Philadelphia City Hall 15 years ago and just said nobody could have built that when they said it was built. We just became geniuses in the last 5 years to say that all this stuff shouldn't have been built. We should have known it shouldn't have been built, but it's more than that. It's like once we got interested in it, then the reality itself said, oh, look, we got them interested in this. And you have to almost think of the reality like it's alive. Feed them whatever they need, so they just keep going. It's just like a distraction at the highest level. And you'd think, well, reality can't work like that. This doesn't fit inside my known reality bookends. It doesn't fit inside your known reality bookends. If you think the Princess Di thing and that crash in the Porta Alma tunnel is the most interesting thing of all time, it will give you so much things to chase. And at some point, we have to learn our lesson and say, wait a second, what is going on here with the reality itself? That's where I'm at. I'm going, wait a second. I'm not playing this game any longer. Okay, I'm starting to realize what its nature is. Okay, this is what the reality does for those of us like us that try to understand it. It's still just a distraction, no different than any other distraction. For those that really don't care to understand it, your next door neighbor, the guy down the cul-de-sac, it just will generate endless distractions and means and things that we understand, like endless shows on Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff, or the red carpet. And I mean, it's almost like a reality breakdown how much series can be produced by Prime and Netflix. I mean, if you're approaching age 50, I mean, guys, you're talking about, in the 70s and 80s, you're talking about 4 or 5 movies a year from major companies. Okay, MGM or Columbia Pictures, and so Sony now owns Columbia TriStar, or Universal Pictures. 4 or 5 movies, that's all they could do a year. And even like a new series on Netflix once a week. Now, I'm sure it's all the movie studios working together, but to me, it's almost a reality breakdown. The amount, or it is, basically the amount of content that is available for streaming, not just from Netflix, from all sources. TBS has their own streaming, and then here's Snowpiercer and this documentary series. It's almost like the reality needed to. Zara, please. No. Wow. And she is just all over me. It's almost like the reality needed to turn this up to 10 out of 10. It's all in with its distractions. And a lot of these distractions, its means are supernatural. It just doesn't fit within my bookends anymore. So I was mentioning that Aaron Abke and aliens, and I just think the more he looked at it, the more he became interested in it. The reality itself, the breadcrumbs started to be laid down. And he was like, we've all been fooled by it. We've all been fooled by it. It's just the way it works. I think we need to finally understand this. Christoph, is a small channel. I participate at his channel. All the Detroit stuff, and I've told him all the Detroit stuff and the Beirut stuff. It's simply the reality. Once it got you showed attention to it. and the reality itself, like a mirror, reflected back and gave you just endless support. The more you investigated it, the more it like generated breadcrumbs. And you could say, someone would say, well, is the consciousness, our own consciousness, generating we're generating it ourselves? Probably, yes, in a way. So, that's not the reality is alive, and it's just out to fool you. But, the reality is a reflection. If we go down the wrong path, it'll reflect back and we'll distract ourselves. So you understand what I'm saying here, guys. I'll try to put it in a more understandable sense when I write this up. Just to summarize with two more examples, like HARP was a big thing in the truth community. I don't know, 5-6 years ago, HARP, whatever it's doing, the atmosphere, ionosphere, fine. I'm sure there's probably something called HARP. Doesn't mean it's not there. I'm saying if you're become a HARP researcher and what's it doing? I'm saying supernaturally somehow the reality will lay breadcrumbs that will lead you in a million different places. I don't know how it works, and it certainly isn't understandable in any kind of known reality that lies between your basic bookends understanding of how things work. Grand solar minimum. I don't know where this came from. People tell me about grand solar minimum. See, just the word grand, whoever talks about that stuff, they always have to use the word grand. Where do you think that term came from? It came from the system itself or the reality itself. So if you're a big researcher on whatever this grand solar minimum is, there's no evidence of this whatsoever up to this point. I've heard a million different times over the past 3 or 4 years about grand solar minimum. I'm sure the reality will show you all this stuff. It will see to it. I don't know how it does it. Okay, this world isn't very real. It's some sort of matrix. But just the fact that everybody always uses or includes or attaches the word grand, what does that even mean? Grand. Like, has there been a bunch of solar minimums, but this one's grand? It tells you the whole origin of it is system related. Okay, Tony, who I write back and forth with, not my friend who believes Wolf Blitzer's Situation Room, but the person who shares insights, and I've spoken with him at length. He would say to remember two critical things. He would say, you agreed to come here, and you need to come to an understanding between you and your higher self that you can walk out of this game. Whatever this is, you can walk out. And it seems like the real truth in that is it seems like the entire reality, just all it does in your entire life is to put you into a certain state where you're not capable of coming to that realization. You're not capable of releasing from its teat, from its connections, from, you've rooted to it in so many different ways. Many people they wouldn't even want to walk out of the game. I told you once, I told my father about the notion of reincarnation, and that's probably the best he could probably hope for. And he was like all excited about it. He's like, oh, I could be a high school pitcher again, date a cheerleader, or like it was like Al Bundy reliving his high school days, glory days, and it was like he was excited. I mean, he doesn't want to. No part of him wants to walk out. Only when you're ready. So Tony would say, it's up to you, but you have to get yourself in a certain state. And remember, you agreed to come here, and the whole reality is meant to, so you don't go into that state. You don't have the confidence. Then David Icke shows up with his Saturn moon matrix, and you feel all doomed because that thing's going to recycle you back and all this BS. And, again, in terms of he's not holier than thou, assuming he's completely legitimate. I don't know who he is. I don't trust people that can fill Wembley stadiums. But, again, in all his investigations, if the reality probably showed him exactly what it set him up for him to see, to believe everything he believes, assuming, that's best case scenario for the big players like that, which I don't have the utmost confidence in. But whatever, you understand what I'm saying. There's some channels I've watched recently where they were like, no way we agreed to come into this. It's like, what? You've got to be kidding me. First of all, other generations have had it a whole lot worse than them putting the whole world in a mask. I mean, come on, as depressing as it is, and it is. I mean, literally, we've been over this. I get in my shower and stand there for 20 minutes. I can go out to Wawa, and there's just all this prepared food and incredible soups, and It's just this is so horrible. So other 400 or 500 years ago or whatever, people being persecuted for whatever, and they're trying to put their head on a stake and torture, and come on. People, truth are saying, we wouldn't have agreed to come to this. And if you're looking in from outside the snow globe, you're saying, come into this. This is, compared to what human beings have been through over the course of however long they've been incarnating here, this is nothing, dude. This is nothing. It's like Revenge of the Titans. Y'all think we want something? We ain't won nothing, y'all. Revenge of the Titans. Oh, is that going to ban the video because I tried to mimic the way he talked in Revenge of the Titans? Is it Revenge of the Titans? No, it's Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington. Just because we won a few games and we came together at camp, we ain't won nothing, y'all. Just because we figured out there weren't no planes on the 7-Eleven job application, and we figured out some things about the Kennedy Dealey does Dallas Plaza. We think we accomplished something in this community. We ain't accomplished nothing, y'all. Somebody probably looking in right now. And do I think these mechanisms actually exist? There's somebody behind a one-way mirror looking in, but figuratively put, like, these people think they got it figured out. They've been eating our yellow breadcrumbs up longer than any other group. They've been played and used and abused more than any other group. Well, almost any other group. They think they won something, y'all. They ain't won nothing. So again, people that say, I would have never agreed to incarnate into that. What? It's a picnic compared to what probably your ancestors have been through. An absolute picnic. Oh my goodness. The only decent takeaway I got when I spent like 3 or 4 days studying, what is this Tibetan Book of the Dead all about? And anybody yelling at me that, Matt, it takes more than 3 or 4 days. Oh, okay, I'll give you that. I have no more interest in researching it for a few reasons. But whatever, one thing I did take away from it was when the shaman was over top the dead body. And there's supposedly a 40-day period where they wander. One of the main things that the shaman was trying to communicate, and they try to communicate with the spirit over the dead body, is that you're in this limbo land. What the demons you're creating yourself. You're creating, it's not real. This environment, you're creating it, spirit. And if you keep wandering, you're just going to recycle right back here into another body. The shaman over the dead body trying to get the soul or the spirit to move on. Again, I'm no expert here. I don't claim to be. But a main thing was like these demons being presented, they're not, understand you're in this 40-day shadow world before you recycle back. This shit's not real. So also there was also a few YouTube videos I watched on this, and I'm thinking, well, why is the shaman so confident? Maybe he should be giving that advice to himself. Well, why is he so confident that he's real? They don't seem to talk about that. It's like just they're over top the body, and don't be fooled by these. Your own mind and consciousness related to soul will create these demons, and you have to overcome them. It's like, well, wait a second. You, Mr. Shaman over the body, you should be considering you're in the exact same situation. You need to understand what you're doing isn't very real, and you need to walk out of the game. Apply the exact advice you're giving to the wandering spirit to yourself. What about yourself, Mr. Shaman, in Tibet? Okay, we're still doing the reality characteristics or checklist or bullet points of distinctive qualities we've observed in the reality itself. Again, keep talking about it like it exists or it's alive. I don't know any other way to present it, at least for the topics I'm presenting. It's the best way to understand it. So here's another characteristic. The presentation from at least the screen, okay, whatever it presents through its media, art, entertainment, outside of your immediate reality bubble, whatever its presentations are, from history to scientific or technological accomplishments to what is considered good or right or just in the world, it's moved slowly, and actually it hasn't been very slowly in the last 5 years, but over time it's moved slowly from a very real presentation, a very legitimate and thorough presentation. That this war was very serious and real, and of course real people died, and it was a very serious, real presentation that any human being could easily I was going to say be fooled into, but it was pretty much a real presentation, but not in every case. Even what was presented in 1969 with Apollo, Mercury, and Gemini, it was a pretty good presentation. It's moved into the theater of the absurd. Its presentation or its ability to stay professional is broken down. Now, I don't think some major conclusion is going to come out of this. I'm just noticing, I have to note this as a characteristic of the reality itself. Its presentation is losing its believability, but only with us. With the people around us, it's like a Mandela effect. The reality resets into the absurd, and people just go along with it. To us, it's broken down. But if we see it as a complete clown show now, we look back and look, to be honest, just to get to a certain place in this community, you have to be honest. I know people will want to fight with me and say, I never succumbed to fear, or Matt, the presentation of Mercury, Apollo, and Gemini was a joke. No, it wasn't. I know that people have stories of their uncle or grandfather that pointed at the screen the very night Nixon was talking to him. He said, there's no way, that's not real. That's very rare. Okay, very, very rare. Of course, it was believed by 99 point whatever percent, and it should be. Its presentation was very good back in the day. It really was. I remember the news with it must have been 83 ABC News. My mom used to watch Peter Jennings from London. He wasn't even the main guy in New York. It was a very real presentation. Of course, it deserved to be believed. But compare 1969 as a Monday morning quarterback. Of course, it looks ridiculous to us now. But compare that to Elon Musk. He has the word sex in the damn space name. The word sex is in the name of the company. I mean, you can't get more absurd than that. There's a rat or some sort of Stuart Little or some sort of mouse or something, or Ratatouille running around the engine with a camera from space. It's absurd, the SpaceX presentation, compared to the relatively legitimate presentation of 69, 70, 71, even the way Viking with the missions to Mars was presented. I mean, a lot more believable. So there's no doubt this deserves to be a characteristic of the reality itself. At least from our perspective, it moves towards the absurd. But somehow it makes up for this because through some sort of means or mechanisms or magic or spell or brainwashing or who knows why, people get swept up in the reality wave. We're getting to the point where it can't get too ridiculous and people will still believe it. There's almost nothing that could happen where people, we believe, I mean, I think you would agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth. We'd say people will believe anything at this point. If people literally don't question that there's a statute in, I don't know if it's what part of Germany it is, or it's just a city ordinance or whatever, but the ordinance says you can only take so many licks from an ice cream cone before you have to be 50 feet away from the premises. Anybody that would go along with that, it proves by itself almost the download is real. The reality reset, the new normal is metaphysical. It's real. It's people riding a reality wave into a legitimate new normal with us standing on the bank. There's no normal human being the way you remember the way people should be that would ever accept you can only take so many licks of an ice cream cone. And if you don't like, Matt, you're using that example too much. How many examples of the absurd in terms of what people are by law told to do or expected to do, just from this C thing alone, let alone what we've experienced over the last 10 years. I mean, okay, insert 1,000 other things into my ice cream lick example if you don't like it, but you know what I'm talking about. So it's all perfectly, that's why don't try to wake anybody up, man. They're riding the reality wave. It's completely normal to them, all right? And you have people like us that are standing on the bank, and of course you're going to have people that are kind of like caught in the middle. But eventually, a lot of those people that whatever they're holding on to breaks, and they get swept down the river too, which I've talked about recently. People telling me that certain family members, all they did was say, I'm not going to even think about the renting of the Action Jacksonation movie until hundreds of millions of people have it. I'm not even going to think about it. I don't want to get it. And then it's like the person calls back and it's like, oh yeah, got it. I rented it. It was on the 99-cent counter. I rented it. But you just said a week ago all this stuff, and you were going to hold off, and you were, well, we'd like to go to Wally World, and I rented. So it's like, okay, well, they were like holding on, and their stick just broke, and they just got swept down the river. And the reality will, unless you're on your guard or a certain type of people like us that can stand on the bank, it will sweep you down. And they're not like, they don't really want to wake up. They're completely immersed in the new reality. This gets back to, and there could be pockets of how influential the reality is, depending on different parts of even regionally in the United States. But this is where people get on me like, oh, Matt, you wear your mask. Yeah, I'm in northern Idaho, and I never have to wear mine. Well, yeah, of course, you're in northern Idaho. Come outside of Philly and see how big you are. That when you go to the first 3 stores, you get thrown out in the first minute. See how big man you are. You're just going to go that you won't wear your mask, whatever. I mean, I don't go to too many places, but it's still in Pennsylvania, Target, giant food store, the Wawas, where I am in Pennsylvania, it's 100% mandated, and there isn't anybody in the store. Matt, they don't enforce it. There's nobody in these stores without it. Nobody. Okay? So people getting on me like, oh, you still wear your mask. You're a sellout, Matt. I'm saying these, again, like I've said, these people the whole store isn't just, they can't wait for someone to take it off and lead them, and they all want to be free. They hate you if you take it off. They're riding the wave of the new normal. They're riding the wave and fully immersed in new reality. They'll hate you if you take it off. And this, again, there are regional differences. Somebody told me about certain parts of rural South Carolina. It looks a whole lot normal now compared to Pennsylvania up through New York and Massachusetts. It's still blue state like California hell. But these people are it's like we are living in a giant Mandela effect. And as the reality gets more and more insane, it's not like they want to push back. They're completely immersed in it, and it's normal to them. The same way if a movie line changes to the Mandela effect, someone say, "Well, it's always been if you build it, he will come," or whatever. It's always been that way, and they have full recollection that it's always been that way. It's that normal to them. That's this new normal has this sort of really, really sinister hidden meaning. And finally, I have one last note here. I touched on it a bit earlier. Might as well do another few minutes now, based on what I just am reading here. The minions, whatever you call a minion, from a prime minister to Melvin P., they're absolutely, in my opinion, not just to make myself feel better, they are used and played as well. I mean, we talked about, the big fish in a small pond. I mean, a completely great understanding of how this place works, related to the whole, related to the completely timeless, I don't think they understand. I think they have an understanding of how the snow globe works. Inside of everything that always was and always that will be, there's this little snow globe reality we call Earth, and whatever they present as our solar system and whatever, and nobody gets into their Bradford white water heater and goes anywhere. Whatever. Oh, they're experts at it. There's a class here that's experts at it. They know how to game the system. The families print the money, and the families control the Fed, and they're experts at it. They have, even, my opinion, reality buttons and levers they play with to push people into certain places, or with a side effect of Mandela effects. They're experts. But so what? It only applies here. If you back up far, and don't even think of it as a snow globe. Think of it like a marble. Like a tiny little round. If you back up just a mile away, it's nothing. So what if they're experts inside their little marble, this place where we are now, or where we incarnated now? If you compare it to all that ever was, all that ever will be, an aspect of what you certainly are, it's like backing up 100 billion miles from a marble. It's like inside there, they're all powerful, and they control all the money, and they put the world into a mess. And it's like, well, who cares? That ain't shit. It ain't shit, really. And they think they probably have no understanding outside that little marble. They're experts in little marble. They're the Wizard of Oz. They have reality buttons and levers. The Wizard of Oz. They have reality buttons and levers. They have shit in the Vatican Library they stole from the Library of Alexander, whatever. But so what? We have to come to a certain understanding. Stop putting any stock anymore in this reality other than how we can use it to learn. I mean, aren't you? I'm getting like the girl at the end of Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger. Just want to turn around like the end of Jumanji and say, I've had enough of this shit. I'm not going to pursue Mud Flood or whatever. The reality is going to show me exactly what I expect to find. We don't know this by now? Every single person that researches something, they find out exactly, the ley lines, and this, investigate this, and this bloodline relates to that bloodline. It's just endless breadcrumbs. It's the nature of what reality itself does. Like Vin Diesel in Triple X. In the diner, I don't know who you're dealing with here. I don't play this game. Just and don't get that angry about it. Like the girl at the end of Friday the 13th, Krueger. She tried. I think she found a way to get him. She got so pissed she started to go after Freddy Krueger, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time, but just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. And once I'm going to exercise all fear. Well, what if there really is a situation that means your death, Matt, or massive death, or whatever could be the next round of C, or the good doctor in the chair, the old man in the chair, all the humanity is going to be wiped out because they're renting the Axe and Jackson Nation. What if one of these scenarios really does play out, Matt? Once you have an understanding of who you really are, you might be a little scared of the short-term suffering that leads to death if certain things happen, but ultimately the death itself is like, who cares? Somebody sent me something in the mail. I have no idea where it came from. He didn't sign his name. It was pretty much bizarre, but there was some very interesting things. It was like on the left was like the normie, all their stuff, and on the right was all the truther stuff, and it's like the normie. And it was like page after page of stuff. I still have it. I still save it. I appreciate the work that was put in. It was bizarre. But it was like the normie. The truther. Fear of dying. Okay, hear me out. The normie. Fear of death. Okay, no fear of death. It's the process, like getting old or feeble or being in pain, having to, there's some fear of that. But fear of death? No. The normie, fear of death. Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, guys, I guess it's gone long enough. Thank you for helping me organize my thoughts for the more professional presentation that I'm putting together. And I'll look at your comments. Thanks a lot.